somewhere along the quiet coast of Oregon, in a town too small for secrets but just big enough for second chances. A man who had everything once, and a boy who could no longer walk, met a woman who had lost her dream, yet somehow still believed in others. Before we dive into this heartwarming story, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. If you love real stories about hope, healing, and second chances, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Another powerful story is coming tomorrow, you won't want to miss it. Let's begin. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a golden glow across the small town of Seabrook, Oregon. Life moved slowly here, a quiet kind of healing place, nestled between the ocean breeze and pine-covered hills. Jake Carter, once the visionary behind one of Silicon Valley's top startups, now lived a much different life. After losing his wife in a tragic accident 2 years ago, he left the city behind and moved to Seabrook with his 7-year-old son, Noah. Noah had survived the accident, but at a cost. The crash had left him paralyzed from the waist down. Since then, Jake's world had become smaller, quieter, and filled with routines designed to protect Noah and Jake's own fragile heart. One early evening, craving something beyond home-cooked silence, Jake wheeled Noah into Gracie's Diner, a warm little place with checkered tablecloths, the smell of fresh pie, and a young waitress with a quiet smile. Her name was Grace Morgan. Mid-20s. Kind eyes. A limp, barely noticeable to most, but Jake noticed. So did Noah. None of them knew it then, but that ordinary Tuesday evening would be the start of something none of them were looking for, yet all of them needed. Jake didn't expect much from the visit to the diner. Maybe a decent meal, maybe a smile from Noah if he was lucky. But something about Grace caught his attention, perhaps the way she knelt down to speak to Noah at eye level, or how she didn't look away from the wheelchair like so many others did. She didn't offer pity, just presence. Over the next few weeks, Jake and Noah returned again and again. Grace always seemed to be there, greeting them with a warm "Hey, stranger," and sliding a fresh cookie in front of Noah before he even ordered. Their conversations grew longer. Grace would tell stories about the ocean, about music she loved, about dreams she once chased. One slow afternoon, rain tapping softly on the diner windows, Grace noticed Noah staring longingly at a little boy running past outside. "You ever think about standing again?" she asked gently. Jake froze, fork halfway to his mouth. Noah shrugged. "I can't. Can't. Or haven't yet?" she replied, her tone light, but her eyes holding something deeper. She asked if she could try something, and with Jake's cautious nod, she moved beside Noah. Grace placed her hands gently on his knees. She whispered something only he could hear, soft, encouraging words Jake couldn't make out. Noah focused. His small hands gripped the arms of his chair, knuckles white. With her guidance, he pushed with every bit of strength he had. His legs trembled. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, he rose, just an inch, maybe 2. But it was enough. Jake's breath caught in his throat. Noah looked up, surprised. Grace beamed. "That's more than can't," she said. Jake stood in stunned silence, emotions he hadn't let himself feel in years rising fast. Pride, fear, hope, all tangled together. Back in the car, Noah couldn't stop talking. "Dad, I stood up. Did you see? I stood up." Jake nodded, blinking hard. "I saw, buddy. I saw." That night, long after Noah had gone to bed, Jake sat alone on the porch, thinking about Grace. About her voice. Her patience. Her courage to believe in something when everyone else had given up. Something had changed. Not just in Noah. In all of them. The next time Jake brought Noah to the diner, Grace was already waiting outside, leaning against the doorframe with a shy smile and 2 paper cups of hot cocoa. Noah lit up as if seeing a best friend. Jake, still unsure of where all this was going, simply nodded his thanks and followed them inside. As they talked, The conversation drifted from school and cartoons to music and movement. Grace pulled out her phone and showed Noah an old video, grainy footage of her performing center stage in a spotlight, spinning with precision and grace. "You were a ballerina?" Noah asked, eyes wide. "I was," Grace said softly. "New York City Ballet. It was my life. Until the accident." She turned her ankle slightly to the side, revealing a thin, faded scar above the heel. A bad fall. Torn ligaments, nerve damage. They told me I'd never dance again. And for a while, I believed them. Jake watched the way she spoke, how her voice dipped just slightly when she said the word never, how her hands folded in her lap like she was still learning to rest. "But then," she continued, her gaze landing on Noah, "I realized. Dance isn't just steps. It's expression. It's believing in movement even when your body fights it." Noah was quiet. Then he said, "Do you think I could dance someday?" Jake felt a lump rise in his throat. Grace smiled. "I think you already are. The moment you stood, you told the world, I'm not done yet. That's dance, kiddo. That's heart." In the days that followed, Grace began stopping by their house. Just a few minutes at first. Then an hour. Then afternoons. She brought old ballet bars, resistance bands, even a portable speaker. She played soft music and taught Noah how to feel rhythm in his shoulders, his arms, how movement began in the mind before the muscles. Jake watched from the porch sometimes, pretending to read. But he was listening. Watching. Feeling something shift deep inside. Grace wasn't just helping Noah move again. She was helping him dream again. And for the first time in a long, long while, Jake began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, he could too. Jake had always been the protector. The planner. The one who built walls around his son's world to keep the chaos out. After losing his wife, that instinct only grew stronger. He thought structure would keep Noah safe, tight schedules, safe routines, doctors, therapy sessions that all felt clinical and cold. But Grace. She broke all of that. There were no white coats or clipboards in her hands, just a speaker playing old jazz, a few yoga mats, and an open heart. And somehow, that was enough. Jake noticed the difference quickly. Noah started smiling more. Laughing, even. He hummed to himself in the mornings. He asked to go outside instead of staying in. And more than anything, he talked about goals, about dreams, about what it might feel like to walk on sand again. One afternoon, Jake sat across from Grace at their kitchen table. Noah was napping after a long session in the backyard. "You've done more for him in a few weeks than all the specialists combined," he said quietly. Grace shook her head. "I haven't done anything magical. I just believed in him. I saw what he could be, not just what he is." Jake looked at her then, really looked. She wasn't just kind. She was brave. And for the first time, he allowed himself to admit what he'd been avoiding. He was tired. Tired of holding it all together. Tired of being strong when he felt anything but. "I don't know how to let go," he confessed. "You don't have to," Grace replied. "You just have to share the weight." That night, Jake tucked Noah in, then walked outside alone. The stars hung quietly above the pine trees, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel entirely alone. The next morning, Jake joined them in the backyard. Not as the overseer. Not as the cautious father. But as someone willing to try. He held Noah's hands as Grace guided him through a new set of stretches. He smiled when Noah cracked a joke. And when Grace laughed, really laughed, it felt like music he hadn't heard in years. The walls around Jake were beginning to fall. And where there once was silence, there was now possibility. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but it felt like something sacred was unfolding in their little backyard, one quiet miracle at a time. Grace started coming by every afternoon. What began as casual visits turned into structured sessions, though they never felt like work. She brought in soft mats, twinkle lights for the fence, even old mirrors salvaged from a local studio that had closed down. With Jake's help, they turned the backyard into something magical, a space full of warmth, music, and hope. They called it the Movement Garden. Noah took to it like it was his own stage. Grace guided him with gentle hands and endless patience, teaching him how to shift his weight, how to feel balance, how to trust his body again. She didn't just train his muscles, she lifted his spirit. Jake became part of the rhythm too. He began to open up, not just to Grace, but to his son. He laughed more, cooked with music on, danced, badly, during practice sessions, and even started telling Noah stories about his mom, stories he hadn't found the strength to share before. And slowly, something even deeper began to take root between Jake and Grace. One evening, as the three of them sat in the grass after a long session, Grace said, "I used to think my story ended with that injury." Jake looked at her and smiled. "I think your story was just waiting for the right chapter." Their eyes met. There was a softness there, a mutual understanding. Both had lost something. Both were learning to rebuild. And somehow, in helping Noah, they were healing too. That night, Noah looked up at the stars and asked, "Do you think Mom can see me?" Jake wrapped an arm around him and said, "I think she's cheering the loudest." The Movement Garden became more than a backyard project. It was a space where love was spoken through movement, where every stretch and step forward was a quiet rebellion against fear. And for the first time in years, all three of them were beginning to believe in tomorrow. Not as something to survive, but as something to look forward to. The weeks turned into months, and what started as recovery slowly became transformation. Jake, once driven by grief and guilt, was no longer just surviving each day, he was living it. He woke up early to cook breakfast with Noah, joined Grace in planning movement routines, and found himself smiling in ways he thought were long gone. He wasn't the man who buried himself in work anymore. He was present. He was growing. Grace, too, had changed. Her limp was still there, but now it was just a part of her, not something that defined her. She started taking night classes in physical therapy and movement rehabilitation, determined to turn her pain into purpose. The more time she spent helping Noah, the more clearly she saw her own future again, one rooted in helping others heal, not just physically, but emotionally. And Noah, he was no longer the quiet boy watching the world from behind a window. He was full of jokes, full of questions, full of spark. His legs grew stronger, but more importantly, his confidence did too. He no longer saw the chair as a limitation. He called it his starter wheels and looked forward to the day he wouldn't need them. They practiced routines to music, sometimes classical, sometimes pop. Grace taught him not just how to move but how to feel every beat. With every step, every lifted foot, Noah proved something bigger than progress. He proved possibility. One day, during a particularly challenging session, Noah stumbled, catching himself on the bar. "I can't do it," he muttered, frustrated. Grace knelt beside him. "You already are doing it. Falling is part of dancing. Getting back up, that's where the strength lives." Jake watched from across the garden, pride swelling in his chest. His son was becoming something more than healed, he was becoming whole. That night, as they all shared dinner on the porch, Noah raised his glass of lemonade. "To movement," he said. Jake and Grace clinked glasses with him. "To movement," they echoed. But deep down, they knew it wasn't just about movement. It was about rebuilding, reconnecting, becoming the people they were always meant to be. Together, the town of Seabrook was hosting its annual Spring Charity Gala, an event held under twinkling string lights by the bay, with families gathered, music echoing across the water, and local heroes honored for their impact. That evening, Jake stood backstage, adjusting Noah's small bow tie with trembling hands. Grace, in a soft blue dress and ballet flats, knelt beside Noah, helping him with the final stretch. Her voice was steady, but her eyes shimmered with emotion. "You don't have to prove anything tonight," she whispered. Just be you. Noah nodded. I'm not dancing for them, he said. I'm dancing for Mom. Jake looked away, blinking fast. The MC called his name. Spotlights lit the stage. Noah wheeled himself to center, paused, then stood, slowly, steadily, on his own. A collective gasp swept the crowd. He raised his head with quiet pride as the music began. It was the same song his mother used to hum in the kitchen. The one Jake hadn't been able to listen to in years. Noah moved, not perfectly, not smoothly, but with courage, grace, and something raw and beautiful. His feet shuffled and stepped, his arms flowed like he was reaching for the sky. It wasn't just a dance. It was a declaration. A celebration. A goodbye, and a beginning. The final note faded, and for a breathless second, there was only silence. Then the applause erupted, thunderous and full of tears. Jake stood, clapping, eyes wet. Grace pressed her hand to her heart, unable to stop smiling. As Noah bowed, Jake realized something. This stage, this moment, wasn't just Noah's. It was theirs. It belonged to every broken day they had survived. Every step taken in doubt. Every ounce of love, trust, and belief stitched back together through patience and hope. Later that night, as the three of them stood beneath the stars, Noah whispered, "Do you think she saw me?" Jake placed a hand on his shoulder. She never stopped watching. Grace smiled softly. And tonight, she danced with you. They stood in silence, letting the night wrap around them. It had started as healing. It had become something more. A new rhythm. A new family. A new future. Life didn't return to normal after that night, because what they had built wasn't about going back. It was about going forward. The movement garden became more than just a backyard space, it turned into a quiet symbol of resilience in Seabrook. Other families started visiting. Grace began offering small group sessions to kids who felt left behind by traditional therapy. Jake donated new equipment. Neighbors volunteered. The garden bloomed, in every sense of the word. Noah, now walking short distances on his own, started school again. He'd become something of a local legend, not because he had overcome the impossible, but because he had dared to try. Kids looked up to him. Parents found hope in his story. And every time someone asked how he did it, he'd smile and say, "Someone believed in me before I did." Jake, once trapped in grief, had found a new rhythm, not just as a father, but as a man rediscovering his capacity for joy. He had traded sleepless nights for story time and silent days for laughter-filled dinners. Grace, walking beside him every step of the way, had found her own second chance, not on a stage, but in the eyes of every person she helped move again. What they learned was simple. Healing doesn't always come in one grand moment. Sometimes, it's found in small steps, one after another, taken by people who refuse to give up on one another. It's in choosing to hope again. To trust again. To love again. And above all, to move, through pain, through fear, through doubt, until what once felt impossible becomes a new beginning. That's what Noah's dance had been about. Not perfection. But courage. Not applause. But connection. Not the steps themselves. But the belief that with enough patience, love, and a single person willing to say, "I see you," even the most broken hearts can rise. So if you're still sitting in your silence, in your sorrow, in your stillness, just know, someone out there already believes in your next step. Even if it's small. Even if it's shaky. Even if it's just the beginning. Because sometimes, all it takes, is one person who sees the dancer in you, before you ever take the stage. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us of the power of love, resilience, and second chances. And tell us in the comments, what was your favorite moment in this journey? Your voice matters here.